Hey, dear Odooers, the fiscal year has ended for Bloom, and it was a pretty good one. As the new fiscal year is starting, we need to close the previous one. Closing a prior year is a crucial step in generating financial reports, as it enables the analysis of financial health and provides investors with an accurate picture of the company. Here are some best practices to help you prepare for the fiscal year's closing. Make sure all bank accounts are fully reconciled up to year end, and confirm that the ending book balances match the bank statement balances. Confirm that all customer invoices and vendor bills have been created and all draft entries have been either confirmed or canceled as needed. Ensure the accuracy of all expenses and validate them. Check that all received payments have been encoded and confirmed. Close all suspense accounts. Ensure your loans are properly registered for automatic amortization calculations. Review overdue payables and receivables aged over 60 days, and assess whether provision for uncertain liabilities or an allowance for doubtful accounts is required. And finally, book all depreciation and deferred revenue entries. The good news is Odoo automatically rolls up the profit and loss statement, meaning it displays the net of our income and expense accounts in the unallocated earnings section of the balance sheet. So all that's left for us to do is allocate those earnings. Here we are on our database. Let's go into the accounting app, and we'll go to configuration and settings. And here we'll search for fiscal. And down in the fiscal period section, the first step is to set a fiscal year end date. In our case, it's December 31st, but you can change it to fit your needs, and your financial reports will be updated automatically. In our case, it's already set, but if not, don't forget to save. If you started your business in the middle of the fiscal year, or if your fiscal year is longer than 12 months, you can set one manually by enabling fiscal years, and then you can click on fiscal years to set specific start and end dates. That's all we need for the fiscal year setup, so we can discard here. Now we need to allocate our unallocated earnings. First, let's check our profit. We'll go to our profit and loss statement under the reporting menu. And we're in the Belgian localization now, so we're looking at the Belgian profit and loss statement, but we can easily switch to a generic version of the profit and loss statement as well. And if we look at it as of the end of the previous fiscal year, we can clearly see last year's total income, total expenses, and our net profit of 59,153 euros and 50 cents. And we can find that same value if we go to reporting to our balance sheet. And we'll also set this to the generic version and to the end of 2025. And here we'll look at the profit of the year, where we'll find that same amount, 59,153 euros and 50 cents. We're going to copy that amount and go to our accounting menu and to journal entries to create a new entry. And we'll name it something recognizable like year closing 2025. And we're going to change the date to be the last date of the previous fiscal year. And in our case, we'll be using the corresponding Belgian accounts, so make sure to use the ones that are suitable for your fiscal localization. For a profit in Belgium, we'll add a line with the account 140,000 profit to be brought forward, and we'll paste that amount that we copied in the credit column. Then we'll add a line with the account 693,000 profits to be carried forward, and we'll paste that amount in the debit column. This is a pretty simple example where we're just moving the profits into an undistributed profits account. But this is also where we could split the profits into different equity accounts if we wanted to. But for our purposes, we are ready to post. And we just recognize our earnings in a balance sheet account. And if we go back to the balance sheet, then we can check the total amount in our unallocated earnings and see that it says 0 because we've allocated all of them. We can even go to the first day of the next fiscal year, and we'll see that both the unallocated earnings for the current year and the retained earnings for the current year have both returned to 0, so that we can start with a fresh slate for this new year. And last year's profits are visible in the previous year's retained earnings account right there, ready to be distributed. Now we'll use the annual closing feature to complete the fiscal year-end process. Here in our accounting dashboard, we have a dedicated journal for our tax returns where we'll find our annual closing tax report. When we click on the tax returns button, this view displays a chronological list of all pending returns. By default, we only see those that need to be completed. The line related to our annual closing includes the year, 2025, the deadline date, and the related branch if this was a multi-company environment, and an action steps status summary with our 2 steps, review and submit. And if I hover on the right of the line, an activities button appears here if we want to schedule an activity to help us get this closing done. The pending message here is related to the validation checks that Odoo performs to make sure everything is in order before submitting the annual closing. These checks cover allocating earnings as well as all the best practices that we shared earlier in this video. Some of these checks are performed automatically, like these 2 here, while others serve as reminders to review essential tasks, such as the earnings allocation. If an automatic check detects an issue, it will be labeled as an anomaly. Let's start with the bank reconciliation, and we'll click on it. And we can see that these bank transactions were not reconciled. Okay, got it. It looks like the customer's payment communication wasn't complete. So let's correct it right away by just setting the correct partner, which was Leaf and Stone Gardens, and we'll do that on both of these transactions. And when we did that, Odoo automatically reconciled them with the correct invoices, so they are good to go. We'll use the breadcrumbs to go back to our tax return, and we can see that the check has been automatically set to reviewed. For the earnings allocation check, I'll click on the line, and since we took the previous year's unallocated earnings and moved them to our undistributed profits account, I'll just go ahead and go back and set this to supervised. These checks here are automatically run by Odoo, but it's also possible to add your own checks. You simply need to enable the developer mode and then open the checks section under the configuration menu. Once all the checks are reviewed or supervised, the annual closing can be submitted. We'll go ahead and validate it. And if I click on the additional options menu here, it's always possible to reset it to go back to our initial stage if needed. In our case, we'll click Submit, and we'll follow the submission instructions that are related to our fiscal localization. And we can go ahead and mark it as submitted. Finally, we want to look at our lock dates. These can prevent any modifications or new records that would mess with the fiscal year calculation. If we go to the accounting menu, we can find lock dates. And this menu item is only available to users with administrator access rights for the accounting app, and only they can add, remove, or modify the lock dates. We have 5 different lock date types here, and they're listed so that we can set them in order, starting at the top and moving toward the bottom. The sales journal lock date prevents the creation of new invoices when closing the period. This way, any invoice that's posted after this date will have an accounting date in the next period. The purchase journal lock date works like the sales journal lock date, but for vendor bills. Next, the locked tax return date ensures no journal entries affect tax accounts before that date. And this was automatically set when we validated and locked our monthly tax return. Finally, the lock everything date prevents any journal entries from being posted before this date, shifting their accounting date to after the lock date instead. Note that these lock dates that we've explored so far are all reversible, as users with the accounting administrator access rights can still change this date after it's been set. So let's say that we remove the lock everything date. Odoo will allow us to indicate that we want to make an exception, and this exception can be applied only to me or to everyone, and we have options for how long it should last. We can also log a reason for this exception, and all of this information is timestamped and logged in the chatter of the company record. For now, I'll give myself an exception so that I can finish closing the fiscal year uninterrupted. Be careful though, because the hard lock date here is irreversible to ensure inalterability and to meet accounting requirements in some countries. If it's not required in yours, you can skip it, but if it is, only set it when you're absolutely sure it's the correct date, because you will not be able to make an exception regardless of your access rights. That's all for this video, but be sure to check out our online documentation on this topic for more information on closing the fiscal year. This has been your pal Dal. I'll see you in the next one.